and but nothing bad has happened to me, and nothing, and I don't regret any decision I've made to have the career I've had. So it's not being a public figure to any degree entails a certain kind of security risk. I'm sure there are actors and um, CEOs who get much more hate mail than I get. In fact, 99% of my mail is incredibly positive, incredibly supportive. So you shouldn't imagine that the moment you criticize religion, every time you open your inbox, you are just hearing from people who hate you all day. There's some of that, but it's for the most part not at all what's going on. Nevertheless, there are a lot of crazy people out there, and I get my share of death threats, and I get and I just take the issue seriously, and I get security wherever I think it's needed. So and there are people who have exquisite security concerns, and this is in comparison with which I have no security concerns. Someone like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who many of you know, is a colleague of mine and on the advisory board of my foundation. Ayaan is someone, she is an ex-Muslim who is officially an apostate. Now that puts you in a very different category of, and the Salman Rushdie effect is what she has had to live with, and those security concerns have been obscene, and that's it's a problem. It's a problem that even in the United States, someone like herself can't go to a college campus without these incredible machinations and metal detectors for every talk, etc. So we need to put our house in order security-wise, but personally speaking, is not a fear that I live with on a day-to-day basis. So there's a question here about the USSR and I assume communism generally as a militant atheist power, and this questioner Eusebius is sort of pushing back against some of my answers to this in the past. In the past, I've said that communism was kind of like another religion. I mean, communism was a nationalistic, and you can lump these all together: communism, Stalinism, even Nazism. These are ideologies that obviously were quite dogmatic and focused not on God, but created a religion-like cult organized around economics on the one hand, or the purity of German blood on the other. And Eusebius is worried that now I am basically using religion to subsume everything that human beings do that's bad. No, the issue is dogmatism. The issue is strong conviction without evidence, and conviction that is shared by the mob, so that you can, the hatred of Jews, say, to take the Holocaust as one example. Passionate belief that moves millions to act, or to demonize the other based on bad argument and bad evidence, a willingness to accept these convictions without argument, without evidence. That's the intrinsic problem, and that's the problem that is unusually present in the context of religion, but it's not only in a religious context. So dogmatism is the thing I'm arguing against, and there are political dogmas which it's not by accident begin to take on some of the character of religions when you put them in place. So you have something like North Korea, which has many of the features of a religious cult gone berserk. I mean, you have millions of people who are starving, imagining that our food shipments are devotional offerings to the brilliance of their dear leader. This is not a circumstance where people have suffered for too much reason or too much self-criticism or too much skepticism. I mean, this is not, and perhaps you've heard me say this before, but there's no society I know of that has ever suffered because people have become too reasonable. And so that's the lens through which to see this. This is not, most of what I've said against religion can be said against Stalinism, for instance, or North Korea. So to say that those are the product of atheism is, I mean, it's another reason why this word atheism is not especially useful, because as a label, it begins to confuse people. They think that, okay, well, Stalin was an atheist, so now atheism is just as bad as religion. Well, no, we're not. The criticism against religion is not the mere advocacy of atheism as an identity. The criticism against religion is because there's no evidence for these core beliefs. Let's criticize the beliefs. Let's criticize this willingness to adopt things on bad evidence. There is another question from Kasiv about the link between morality and well-being, and again bringing it back to animals and also vegetarianism and veganism. Yeah, again, the basis of morality is, on my view, a concern for the well-being of conscious creatures. So that to the extent that any creature can suffer or be made happy or be deprived of happiness, well, then we have an ethical interest in, and ethical concerns come into play. So yes, why would it be wrong to kill pigs, and worse to kill pigs than to kill flies, say? Well, it would be wrong because pigs suffer, or can suffer, or be happy, or be deprived of happiness, and they can do those things to a much greater extent than flies can. Now, we could be wrong about that. There's no reason to think we are wrong about that, but that would be the way we should parcel our ethical concern. It's to the extent that something can suffer or be made happy. That's the extent to which it sort of enters into the moral universe. And this is why it's right to be more concerned about human beings than it is to be concerned about pigs or any other species we're aware of. I mean, this is not mere speciesism. It's not merely because we're human beings we should be more concerned about ourselves. It's because we show every sign of having a broader and deeper and richer experience than any other conscious creature we know about. If we were in the presence of conscious creatures who had, I mean, I'm happy to bite the bullet here, and I do this in the book, if we met conscious creatures who we knew had a much broader, deeper, and richer experience of the world than we had, yes, they would be more important than us. I don't see that as, some people find that as such a controversial statement that it's almost a reductio ad absurdum of my argument. If there is something that stands in relation to us the way we stand in relation to bacteria, well, then that's something that's more important than us. I mean, I don't see any other way of thinking about it. Now, there's no evidence whatsoever that beings like that exist, but if they did, we certainly shouldn't eat them. So there's a question from Legion 6226. What was the most compelling argument or reason given for religion, and has it changed your mind on specific ideas? Is that part of a longer question about the experience I've had in Q&As and debates with theists? And has there been anything that has just pushed back against my criticism of religion that has given me pause or made me worry that I'm wrong about any of this? There's certainly nothing that has come from a theist or a defender of religion that has made me think that, well, maybe I'm wrong about the core issues about what's true. I mean, I've never been in dialogue with a Christian and begun to worry that, well, maybe Jesus was born of a virgin and rose from the dead and will be coming back to earth, etc. The only argument that I find interesting that no one tends to really make at length, but it would be one that would give me pause, that would give me pause is a purely pragmatic argument, which is, and I'll give you, it's what I think is probably its strongest form. When you look, for instance, at why Muslims in the United States tend to be very different from Muslims, at least to this point, have tended to be very different than Muslims in Western Europe, in the degree to which they have expressed a kind of a solidarity with extremism. And we seem to have a less of a problem of jihadism and sympathy with jihadism in the States than we have in Western Europe. You look at that specific problem, the problem of religious certitude in extremist Islam, and some of my critics could say, well, the reason why things are better in the United States is because we have this rich, diverse, respectful conversation about religion, where religion is encouraged. Nobody is obliged to be any more secular than they want to be. This is not like France, where we're criticizing religion or we're banning the veil. So there's something about just kind of celebrating everybody's craziness in the public sphere, which mitigates that craziness, and especially on the point of kind of bringing Islam into modernity. The only bridge to modernity for Islam is one in which you silence any criticism of the faith, and you just sort of encourage its most benign face. And so this is a purely pragmatic argument. This is not something that gives credence to the sanctities of Islam or the propositional claims of Islam. Now, if that were true, I don't actually know that that's true. I suspect it's not true. There are other reasons why we have a different character to the Muslim community in the U.S. than we have in Western Europe. But if that were true, if we could look at the answers at the back of the book and discover, yes, if you criticize Islam the way I criticize it, the effect will be terrible. And if you talk about Islam and dissemble about Islam the way Karen Armstrong does, the effect will be to modulate it in a few short years, and Islam will basically be like, Methodism in the U.S. Well, then that's a pragmatic argument, and I would, that it's certainly worth, I think, on certain points, caving into it. I think that there's certainly room to elide the truth and to be a mere politician about these things. I'm not convinced that that's the case, but that's sort of the hardest thing for me to ignore. It's when someone raises that forcefully to the end of telling me I shouldn't be saying what I'm saying in public. Okay, well, there's a bit of a long thread on, seems to me, questioning the coherence of thinking about well-being as a basis for morality, and some expression about how hard it is to actually know, in any case, what is going to maximize well-being, and there's a bunch of questions and comments that I'm trying to distill here.